Hello. It's Monday, December 16th, 2024, and welcome to this episode of Confessions of a Mid-Centurion. Today's episode is titled JFK and the Marine Theater. We're going back to May 15th, 1960. It was a Sunday. It was early evening, late afternoon. I am strolling from my home with my brother and maybe a couple of our neighborhood cronies towards Flatbush and Flatlands Avenue, probably about a mile walk from our homes. Probably to get the newspaper, read some comic books in the local luncheonette, get an egg cream, a pretzel stick, spend about 6 cents on that and be able to hang out all the way towards evening and then head back home. Unbeknown to us, because we were young, there was an election going on, presidential election campaign, Nixon and Kennedy, big deal. As we turned towards the Marine and Brook theaters, which were two theaters catty-cornered one to the other, one on Flatlands Avenue and one on Flatbush Avenue, and I can tell you a story about how once I got past the ushers with the flashlights telling us to get back in our seats and snuck in behind the curtain and actually found the pathway from the Marine Theater to the Brook Theater, which is a very spooky, dark crawl space. And it was about a block long and crooked, and it was a lot of fun, and nobody else was ever in there that I know of, and I don't think I ever told anybody that I was in there. And if you don't believe me, what the heck can I say about that? As we approached, we saw that the street had been blocked off, and there was a crowd that went from one side of Flatlands Avenue to the other, which was 4-lane highway, no divider, and about a block long as well, of people. And there was a flatbed truck almost on the sidewalk. It might have been on the sidewalk, with some microphones set up, and lo and behold, there was a campaign stump speech about to happen, being delivered by, to become president, John F. Kennedy, Jr., I believe, but JFK, as we know him in history. And since we were going there for other reasons, soda, pretzels, newspaper, free funny comic books, that kind of thing, we were pushing our way to the way in the back of the queue, several hundred people deep, from the flatbed truck with the microphones where Mr. Kennedy was going to speak at some appropriate time, probably around 5 o'clock or something, I don't know. And my brother said to me, "Boy, wouldn't it be neat if we can get right up close there?" And I said to him, my brother, "Well, you know, that's way up there. How am I going to get up there?" He said, "Why don't you make believe you're going to throw up and keep like dry heaving all the way and just kind of say, excuse me, and see what happens. And I'll be right behind you." And actually it turned out to be a relatively good idea, because I started, excuse me, tapping people on the shoulders, and my brother was right behind me, and his friends were right behind him. And it took us probably about 6 or 7 minutes, and my throat started to get sore because I was consistently doing a very good job. Actually got better at the theatrics of faking the dry heaves to make the crowd pass, kind of like Charlton Heston did with the Red Sea. In the movie, I think the Ten Commandments, that one was. And we got right up to the front. We could touch the flatbed truck. And up from side stairs, from out of nowhere, Mr. Kennedy appears, and he's literally, I could have untied his shoes. I could have untied the good man's shoes. I could have tied them together. Probably could have affected history if I did something with Mr. Kennedy's shoelaces. I didn't. I was looking straight up at him. And I don't know how long he spoke, and I don't remember what he said, but history will determine that. And he leaned down somewhere in his speech. Maybe it was for applause, maybe it was to take a breath of air, but he leaned down, he put his hand out, and I shook JFK's hand only because my dear brother had the very creative crowd control idea to simulate dry heaves repeatedly, probably about 100, 125 times. Again, who knows? But it was a big crowd. Mr. Kennedy was drawing people, and where we were, our part of the world turned out to be good for him, and good for him. So this is a simple little story on this Monday as we run up towards the holidays about how my brother came up with a creative idea for crowd control and also for intimacy to greatness for this little young man. And on the look back, I find that to be a rather special experience for me, because when I shook the man's hand, number one, he looked straight at me, and number two, he kind of had a strength and he had a gentility about him. And after his life went the way it went, shortly thereafter, Beatlemania set into America, and the Beatles were able to take us out of our collective mourning, I guess. And the man seemed to be strong enough to be gentle. And looking back, I thought that was a trait that I also saw in musicians, that we didn't have to be, crew cut and all that, and Betty Friedan said a lot about that as well. So it taught me a lot about the A to Z of what's capable about being a guy, and that you don't have to be always the tough winner. You can be gentle and be strong enough to be gentle and be confident enough in your strength to be gentle. And after the man passed, I remember that we were sitting around the table, and my father, who wasn't normally philosophical, at least in words, I mean, he had a deep philosophy. I'm sure he was a great man. I know he was a great man. I'm sure he had a deep philosophy. We were chatting about it, and we were listening to the ball game, and it was, I think, going to be a rain delay. Anyhow, the announcers were talking about the ground crew, probably Red Barber and maybe Phil Rizzuto at that time. I don't think maybe Mel Allen and Red Barber. I think Phil Rizzuto might still have been playing towards the end of his career. And my dad said, you know, son, we're here to be the grounds crew for the Angels. And I don't know what that means yet, but it sounded awfully deep, and it's probably correct, that we're here on the planet Earth to be the grounds crew for the Angels. I guess we got to keep the place ready to play. With that said, I want to wish you all a very lovely Monday night. And you know what to do in podcast land, so the algorithms that rule will notice us in any way. Like, subscribe, comment, share, thumbs up. Anywhere you find your podcast, we'll be there. And we're out. And be strong enough to be gentle. And maybe consider that we are indeed the grounds crew for the Angels in a game that has who knows how many innings, who knows what the score is, who knows who's keeping score. But all we can do is be strong enough to be gentle and be confident in our strength to be gentle. Happy holiday run-ups, folks. Appreciate y'all. This episode of Confessions of a Mid-Centurion is playing itself out. Thank you. I'm taking some risks to connect with you, hip. We don't know how we got on this ship. I shook a president's hand. This juggernaut of excess is a sloppy lip joint. This is no landing field, the journey is the point. It was all my brother's idea. No grand finale, don't you understand? This ain't no opening number, and I ain't no headline band. So go slow, slow enough to know that the smallest things are the biggest things, and this is still not, no, this is still not everything. Oh no, not everything. Oh no. The smallest things, the biggest things. So go on your laps, angels, and flap, flap, flap your dusty wings, and go slow, slow enough to know that the big smallest things are the biggest things, and this is still not